You have a divine animal right to protect your own life and the life of your offspring.
You ready?
Yes.
Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. My name's Aldoin, and today we're going to talk about abuse and how to handle it, especially if you live with individuals who are doing this to you at home. This video is for one of our viewers who posted this comment. He asked for information on how to be safe and how to deal with abuse that may be happening at home. Abuse at home is one of the most insidious things that can happen because your home is your sense of refuge. You know, it's kind of where you go when you're tired, when you want to recuperate, when you should feel safe. So this is the reason why this type of abuse and harm is so bad, because it can get you when your guard is down, right? The idea of how to deal with that, especially if you're kind of being conditioned to kind of follow what the people around you have said, you know, they've created rules for you to follow. That's going to be very, very hard to deal with. In any type of self-defense situation, it's about really controlling your environment. How do you control your environment, right? Like, how do you force the people to kind of leave you alone that may be bothering you? And I would say make the environment hostile, right? One of the things that we say in self-defense is you want to give the appearance that you can handle yourself, right? That means when you're walking down the street, that means no headphones in your ear, or at the very least, don't be walking around with your hand holding your phone, because while I'm looking down at my phone, you can see if you're watching me, you know, as I'm walking down the street, like I could be bouncing and walking down the street and my mind is on this phone. I don't see anything that's around me. I don't see anybody that's near me, which means that you lose time, right? I'm going to get this across to you guys, this valuable aspect of time, right? One of my favorite self-defense YouTubers says that time buys you options. Options can buy you back your life, right? So when you see that someone is approaching you with their hands in their pockets, right? That's telling you, hey, this person has something in their hands. You need to figure out where you can go. You can cross the street. You can turn around. You can put your hands on your own force multipliers that we covered in a prior video, whether it's your flashlight or your OC spray or a baton or something that you have in your pocket. That gives you time to kind of adjust. So again, controlling your environment is kind of about seeing what is around you. How would this apply to in the home? That's where the problem comes in, because in your refuge, the ability to react is kind of taken from you, because, you know, I'm assuming that abuse could come from someone when you're sitting at a dining room table. Abuse could come from someone barging in on you when you're in the bathroom in this home. So I would say establish ways to buy yourself time, right? Try to see if you can install a deadbolt if they will allow you, because because if you're being controlled by people, they might not appreciate things that buy you time, right? So if they're knocking and rapping at your door saying, hey, I told you to go make dinner, or I told you dinner is made, come eat, and they're banging at that door, they're going to be like, hey, why won't they let me come in? What are they doing? What are they buying time to do, right? They're going to be thinking, is he making a weapon? Is he escaping? Am I losing my control over him or her? So these are the reasons why I would say control your environment, create that barrier. If you can have a door, I've heard of at least one person whose mom literally removed his door. Yeah, removed his door. So now he has no options. Now he has no time, right? So let's say he was in his room doing something private, and there's no way the mom's going to knock on that door now because the door's not there. So he has no time to prepare, to kind of collect himself and things. All he can kind of do is use his ears. So you understand this concept of buying yourself time, right? Make the environment as inhospitable to the people in your environment as possible. One of the ways you can do that is with the way you've set up your environment, right? If the person is bothering you a lot when they come into your room, why not make it where there's only one chair to sit down, and that's the one that you're occupying, you know? Any surfaces that they would normally sit, maybe there's something on those surfaces. I'm not saying make your room messy, but I'm saying make it inhospitable to people that you don't want there. You know, maybe disassemble the chairs, maybe put all the chairs away, you know, make an excuse about saving room, make an excuse about spring cleaning. I know we're past spring now, but you get the idea. It's your environment. Hopefully, you have the freedom to rearrange this environment and make it as inhospitable as possible. I've got this idea from the way New York actually has been creating their park benches, and other big metropolitan cities, even Washington D.C., is starting to incorporate some of these inhospitable seats, right? And you might say, who is it inhospitable to? Well, it's to the homeless. They don't want homeless people sitting on park benches anymore, right? So they put these metal ridges in it that creates havoc on the human spine. Yeah, they paid an engineer to do this, and there's just more of these things popping up all over major metropolitan areas, New York especially. So that's where the idea came to me, to kind of pass along to you guys about making your areas inhospitable. Another way is sound. You know, maybe you've got something playing that's annoying as hell to this person.
Peace, nice peace, nice peace, nice peace, nice peace, nice peace, only my father.
And it doesn't have to be like loud rock music or rap music or whatever some people find annoying. It could be something as simple as white noise. Like that could drive people crazy, right? Play that, right? And they may say, why are you, they may cover their ears. Why are you playing this? This is horrible. You just tell them, hey, it relaxes me, right? And they don't have to know that it gets on your nerves. As soon as they leave, turn it off, you know? Another way is smell, you know? Maybe there's a candle that you like the scent of, but they hate. Keep that thing burning. I mean, be careful with lights and things. You don't want to burn down your room, but you get the idea. Maybe it's a Glade plug-in that you love the flavor of, the scent of, and they just can't stand it. That's environmental hostility to keep them out of your space. My wife is very big on talking about how she appreciates small cars, because when the car is small, what happens? You can only really bring one person with you if it's a two-seater. You know, if it's a Spider or something like that, you only have one other seat. So it's like there's not going to be so many people wanting to ride along with you. So for your car, if you have a situation where you're traveling in a car and you've got family members or other friends that are kind of like frenemies or family that really doesn't have your best interest in need and they want to be with you all the time, find ways to have those seats filled up, right? I don't know, maybe get a paper route and fill those seats up with paper. Maybe, you know, just tell them that you're reorganizing something right now. Just have stuff in all the seats and stuff so they can't sit there. You have to control your environment. You have to make that environment push them out, because if you're in a internally abusive situation, you obviously can't overpower them. Obviously, they have some kind of they have something held above you, whether it's your rent, where they're paying the rent and you're living underneath their roof and you have to play their game, and the environment's really the only thing that you can change. Do that, right? And I would love to hear what you guys think. Like down below, what would you do if you were dealing with internal abuse? You know, perhaps someone is abusing you physically, you know, and that's where the environment part comes in. Now, you're going to need to find a way to have an exit plan, right? There's this idea of something called a bug out bag, right? And I really don't like to have to tell you guys this, but it's best to have some kind of plan put together. A bug out bag is a bag that has essentials in it. It's essentials for your survival. It's essentials for your travel to your backup plan. So your backup plan can be anything. Some people, it's just enough money to get on a bus ticket just to get to another town where they know they have a friend or a family member or an acquaintance, so they can get to them and start over again. What I will say, I know some people don't like planning for that, but I'm of the mindset that if you fail to plan, you're planning to fail, right? So look at it like that. And it's also a stoic thing too. Like the idea of being ready for the worst thing, even though you're not praying for the worst thing to happen, you want to have that plan should you need it. So a bug out bag could have a force multiplier in it, like one of these multi-tools that I talked about in my last video. It could have something as simple as maybe like $50 in cash that you use to survive off of until you make your next move. It could have a fresh pair of clothes in there, so that way you know if you need to leave in the middle of an argument, you know that you got a fresh pair of clothes. You know that you got a bar of soap. You know that you got a Nutri-Grain bar in there. You know that you got a bottle of water. You know that you got maybe some bandages to take care of any like physical things and cuts and bruises. Your essentials. Like, it shouldn't be full of everything. I'm not saying, put 20, 30 comic books in there. I'm not saying it may not be a bad idea to have a prepaid cell phone in there with a cell phone card that you haven't used, with a fresh pair of batteries, something like that, because you never know if you live in an environment that's so hostile that these people could take your phone. Grabbing that bug out bag and leaving could save your life, depending on your situation. And then also, there are resources available for people who need to get out and need to get out now. So I urge you guys to take advantage of those if you feel like you need that. I'm going to be posting those kind of links down below. There are hotlines and things to call for human trafficking and things, if you can get away from that situation. Self-defense when coming home at night, things like the metro and things like that. Again, you definitely want to buy yourself time. Buying you options is a big thing. This is something that I see quite a bit as a Black male. This is just something that many Black males are aware of. Some guys may not feel confident enough to tell you this, but it's something that we all think about. We just don't talk about it, right? When people approach us, women, we know that you're grabbing your bag. Like, we see it. Like, there's no way to unsee it. Like, you literally, some people make it painfully apparent, but like almost throwing the thing almost over their whole neck, that they're getting their bag ready to get stolen. That's how I call it, getting it ready to get stolen, right? What they're doing is they're seeing me down the street. They're assessing the skin color. They're assessing the tattoos. And when I had piercings and stuff, they were assessing that. And they go, oh, this guy is probably going to hurt me. Let me get ready. And they're ready to bag up. Well, what they're doing is they're taking that time and they're adjusting themselves so they can survive whatever battle they think may be coming. Well, you have to do the same thing. I talked about crossing the street. I talked about getting your multipliers set up. But you have to understand that this can be applied to not just walking down the street. What about an elevator? What about an alleyway? What about that precious time it takes for you to leave your car to go to the elevator, to go into the apartment complex? These are called transitional spaces. Transitional spaces are so dangerous because it's usually when you are most vulnerable, right? Think about Nocturne's question. He asked about being safe moving to and from places like metro stations, right? When you're traveling, let's say that you're in the metro. Some people would say that you're relatively safe so long as everyone's cordial on that particular vehicle, because you're all traveling. So long as there's no one getting rowdy, you're relatively safe. But the moment you step out of that train, you're now transitioning off the train, and now you're on the platform. That platform has stairs or elevators that take you up to the top. That transitional space from that vehicle, that train, to the elevator or to the escalator, that is one of the moments where there's an opportunity for thieves to assess you. This is why we're talking about the phone thing, where you're getting off of the train, plane, car, whatever it really is, because they're all transitional spaces. This same thing applies to someone who has parked their $90,000 Mercedes, right? He gets out of the car, he gets off the train, and he's now on the platform, or he's now stepped out of his car. His door is closed behind him. Those train doors have closed, and you look at your phone, right? You're looking at your phone. So now you can't see anything around you. You haven't even looked to see like who's in the corners, right? You haven't even done one quick like eye look to see what's happening, right? So keep that in mind when you're leaving from a phone, when you realize after looking up, hey, everyone's walking away from me. No one's in the corners looking at me. I can glance at my phone, right? One of the worst things you can do is pull that phone out and leave it out for the entirety. Why? Because that phone is also a target as well. Like, many of these phones are, what is it? Some of them are $2,000 or $3,000 phones now. So keep that in mind. You definitely want to try to buy as much time as possible by being aware of who is around you and what they're doing, where their hands are. Keep your force multipliers on you. Now, I do want to describe the different types of abuse, because right now we've been focusing very heavily on physical abuse, but there's also a type of financial abuse too, where people are restricting your access to your own money. It could be coming up with reasons as to why you shouldn't go to school and why you need to stay here. Those are that situation is a financial abuse. That type of situation is financial abuse, and it's going to be a bit trickier to deal with that because if they've gotten access to your bank accounts, one of the very few ways you can kind of deal with that outside of asking for help from the police and things is to kind of go to your employer, see if you can switch the money to a another account. But see, when you get home, eventually one day they're going to realize that the money hasn't been coming in. So this is when things get a little dicey. I would say open up another bank account, open up a prepaid debit card like the ones over at karma.com, Dave.com. A lot of these guys, they make great alternative to bank accounts if you really need to still get a hold of your money. Cash App is another prepaid card that's really good. And plus, Cash App allows you to receive monies from your friends if you have a support network, because support networks are going to be something that you're going to need if you want to survive this. If you know that you're being abused, but you can't get out right now, building that support network is going to be it's going to be at least one other person that knows somewhat of your situation. You don't have to tell them everything because then that might scare them, but telling them little bits and pieces and building that friendship over time gives you a destination to travel to if you need to grab that bug out bag we mentioned earlier, right? It gives you someone who can talk to you about what you're going through and help maybe shoulder some of the mental load of what you've been going through. So building that network is important. It's almost like building an outside base from where you are now. And if your base falls in other words, if you have an argument or if you're physically assaulted or worse, this person may be able to take you in, or at the very least provide you with resources while you get back on your feet. Now, I will say when you're walking at night, you want to try your best to walk in areas that are well lit. Remember, we talked about buying yourself time. Well, walking into the darkness is one of the quickest ways to kind of remove that time from you. Now, interestingly enough, if you have a flashlight, especially the one that I mentioned from the guys over at Sofern, that light is almost like a it's like a beacon, like it can blind and fill up and open up dark areas. So having that flashlight with you can buy time by just turning it on, right? We didn't talk about it too much, but it's perfectly fine to flash someone with a flashlight. If they're walking towards you and you feel a bit dicey and things like that, you can hit them with that flashlight beam. It doesn't do any physical damage to them. The worst thing that can happen to them is maybe they develop a seizure, but that's unlikely for the situation. And best case scenario, you put that light in their face, and when they go to cover their own face, their own eyes, because your light is so strong, perhaps they give up the fact that they had their hand on a knife or even a more damaging tool. And now that they're blinded, it gives you time and options to get away, to plan your response. So, if at all possible, choose well lit areas when you're walking at night. Also, keeping a safe distance from people that you don't know, right? We talked about crossing the street. Well, that same thing applies with walking in any type. Now, I know in big cities like New York, you're kind of pushed up on top of people. This is one of the reasons why you want to keep your eyes open and constantly check where people are putting their attention, because there are times when you'll see a group of ruffians who happen to just spot you, and they make their decision based off of what you look like. So keeping aware of all of them gives you some idea. You can even get back on the train. Maybe you'll miss your stop because you see that they're looking at you when you get off. Now, let's talk a little bit about different types of verbal abuse. I mean, obviously, verbal is spoken word, but if someone's constantly yelling at you, they're constantly using derogatory words and terms, you may have grown used to it, but someone who's always using these kind of behavior toward you, that is an attack, that does raise your blood pressure, that does raise your cortisol levels, it does make you stressed, and it does kind of remove a number of months and days off your life. Like stress and cortisol has been clinically shown that it shortens your life. So that is abuse. Someone is constantly calling you stupid, dumb, all the names that hurt you mentally. That is a form of abuse, and I suggest that you find ways to get around dealing with that kind of thing, that kind of verbal abuse. Oftentimes, verbal abuse happens because the person has some kind of power over you, whether they're physically larger than you, they have some kind of health perhaps you have some kind of health situation and you can't retaliate for fear of being put out, that is when you rely on in the room inhospitable to them. Because if they're coming in your room with all this noise, having that horrible song on could make them go, realize they can't overpower the song. Perhaps they want to try to turn your radio and things off, which could spark a physical confrontation. So be mindful of that. Now, we're going to talk about emotional and psychological abuse. Now, this is one that people may have, it's kind of hard to really recognize what's going on, because, when you're belittled, when you're a child, when you're being called names when you're a child, if that's not addressed and you become an adult under living in that situation, it can mold your mind to believe that the problem is you. Especially if this comes from someone that you have great respect for, you may start to believe, oh, hey, this is something that is true for me. Like perhaps I'm broken. Well, you have to realize that no amount of love or no amount of family should be allowed to make you feel less than you should, right? If someone is consistently putting you down, that is abuse. If someone is consistently pointing out your flaws and criticizing you day and night, they're breaking down who you are, and they're really causing you to become something that you shouldn't be. Again, making your environment inhospitable to that person can do wonders in moving them out of your space. I would highly recommend in other more potent ways of changing your environment for someone that is that nasty, where they're psychologically always attacking you, because that can create all kinds of mental disorders in how you process social situations, and it can really break you when it comes time to live on your own if you're not out there on your own right now. So if you enjoyed this video, I say watch another one of our videos. We've got a number of videos up on the channel right now that talks about these kind of things. If you want more content like this, hit that like button. Guys, please be safe out there. I will see you all in the next video. Thanks for watching.
Now